Hello, so this is just a little bit of practice with the function notation and just simply evaluating functions at different values. This is not kind of the main idea of our course in the Saturday sessions, but we're going to use this notation in our work, and we need to make sure that we understand it. So really, this is kind of a fancy way of plugging in. So notice that we've got all the different kinds of names for functions on this page. Like, I guess we don't have the arrow, but we have two of the most popular ways of showing it. Down here, notice that some of these functions have these full names. So we've got this function Sierra that it looks like it multiplies with the input value by 10 and adds 5. Right? So these kind of give us a formula here. If you look up here at this part, these functions have single letter names, which kind of you'll often see in books. And we see that down here too. This one's just called T. So if we wanted to, and we could have called this function crunch, just simply F or G or H. Sometimes a longer name might be more descriptive. I think I like to introduce it this way because it does indicate that you want to think of this thing as a rule, as a machine. I dump things into it, it gives me an output. So it's not anything to be afraid of. Okay, so let's look at this. What is this telling me? Well, so this is just like we did with crunch of 3 here on the other page. I mean, this is just a way of saying, crunch is a rule. Like one way to write it is add 4, multiply by 2, add 10 in order. Okay, another way to write that is add 4, multiply by 2, add 10. This is just an alternative way in algebra of writing this over here. Okay. So here it's just a little bit more abstract looking, but it's not any more complicated than what we saw before. Zoom in a little bit here. Okay. So what is this thing saying? Well, it's just saying take this value -2 and put it in this. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a space here where my variable is, -3. And I'm just going to copy the -2 into this. So this is a little bit kind of less sequential than the crunch machine, but it's the same idea. We could have done with crunch, the same thing. We could have taken, if I put the 0 into this formula, I'm still going to get the same output. So if I said crunch of 0, crunch of 0, well, what am I saying? I'm saying I'm going to take the 0 and dump it in here. Well, a way to do this, rather than to do it step by step here, is to say, all right, fine. I'm going to put it there where the x is. I'm just going to evaluate that. So here I go. I'm going to put it in this slot. I'm going to copy it in. So here's my 0. So then I've got 2 times 0 plus 4, which is 4, plus 10. So that's 8 plus 10 is 18. So, and that's what I got up here by following these steps in the machine. So again, this is just a different way of writing these steps. It's the same kind of concept here. Although usually your experience of this is going to be like copying that -2 into these x values. So this is going to give me -2 times -2 is 4. 2 times -2 is -4 minus 3. So these are going to zero out, and I'm going to end up just with a -3. So the idea is if I dump this value, -2, into this machine called f. So f is just a machine that does this and spits out a value. Okay, so I put a -2 in, and I got a -3 out. Some of these other ones might be a little yucky for you. We'll work on some of these in class, but it's the same concept of, I'm going to treat my variable here. I'm going to leave a blank. I'm going to copy this in. I mean, if we wanted to do this one, this is just a super easy one, right? So I've got my blank. This just, all this machine called G does is that it raises things to the 6th power. So whatever I put into this machine called G, it multiplies it by itself 6 times. That's what it says. So the rule for G in English would be multiply it by itself 6 times. So I'm going to take the -1, copy it in there, right? Isn't that what we're doing? X to the 6th power. I mean, it's blank to the 6th power, and then I just copy this guy in. In any kind of a negative to an even power is just going to be positive. And so -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 6 times. I'm just going to get a 1. Okay, so that's all that's about. And down here, it really is the same thing, only now I have a table instead. So I'm dumping all these values into this function called Sierra, but it could be called T, it could be called U, it could be called F. You don't really care what it's called. What does it do? It takes whatever goes in, it multiplies it by 10, and it adds 5. So if I put a 0 in there, a 0 times 10 is 0, plus 5 is 5, etc. And then I'm just going to go on and fill in the table. I mean, you can also think of this as just another form of plugging in. But again, it's important though, it's a fine distinction, but that this is a rule. It's called Sierra. What does this rule Sierra do? It multiplies the input by 10 and it adds 5. So in this case, well, it's going to multiply the 1 by 10, which would mean 10 plus 5 is 15. And there I go, and I can fill it in from there. Some of these may ask you to go backward and try to write the function rule from the table. Again, we'll talk about that more in class, but hopefully you get the idea. Okay, the second page of this is, you know what, I think I'm going to tackle this in another video just to kind of keep this from being too long.